Welcome back to the Prosperity Playbook. I hope you enjoyed our special guest the last couple weeks. If you missed that with Krista Hudak, definitely go back and watch those. We talked a lot about investing and financial planning, but today you're back with Renee, Britt, and Courtney, and we're going to talk about burnout. I know that all of us have very busy careers, very busy lives, and it's kind of just expected of us to just grind all the time. And I think that is a recipe for burnout. And I think sometimes we start into January really refreshed and excited for the new year, and we're going to do all these new things. And burnout can actually hit really fast in that because sometimes we try to do too much too fast. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that today.
I think where I'm at currently, it's really interesting because most of my New Year resolutions were all about taking care of myself and, sleeping better, less screen time, more activity, like the things that directly combat burnout. And then work has just been a dumpster fire. And so I am like deep in burnout currently because I feel like I just can't catch up. I can't get out of it. And when I can't catch up, then I immediately, the first thing that goes is taking the extra time for self-care and for going to the gym and for cooking a nice meal. And instead I'm eating mac and cheese and,
Popcorn
going to
and
bed
wine.
at 11. Yeah, exactly. So, the balance is a constant tug of war.
Well, and I think it's really hard for it not to be when you're in growth mode. And I know you're in growth mode. I know I'm in growth mode. I feel like, that's the old saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. And it's one of the things that fuels you and makes you feel like you have purpose when there is something new and something growing. And so how is that not a recipe for disaster? And we talked on some of our last calls around, you can't add more things. You already have a fixed amount of things during the day. Most of us are at our capacity for the number of things. So you got to take some things out. But sometimes there's things we actually do have to add in. Just like what you said, my biggest thing I've said I was going to focus on this year was my health. And I realized I got through like the first 3 weeks and all I did was be in survival mode for work because all of a sudden all the buyers who've been hiding for the last 2 years have come back out of the woodwork and they are all ready to buy. I had 6 clients in multiple offer situations last week. Like last Friday, I did 8 new loan consultations in one day, just back to back to back to back to back. I've never done that, just like solid all day long on a Friday. So it's wild. It's way busier than I expected it to be right off the bat. And so of course that threw away some of my initial plans, but I did have that moment this week where I was like, I'm not doing any of the shit that I said I was going to do. So I went through this weekend. I was like, I need to work and catch up. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm
Is
just
there
not.
actually a catch up though?
Right.
I feel like none of us truly ever catch up.
Well, that's a really good point. And for me, I've looked at that a lot where I feel like I don't maybe like to be totally caught up because it doesn't feel great to feel like I have no business. Like I think I do somehow, somewhere like this really busy feeling because it makes me feel like I'm doing all the right things. I have in the last 2 months, I've had a couple of times where I was like, whoa, my to-do list is down to a handful of things. This actually feels pretty good. But I wouldn't want a 0 to-do list. I wouldn't want to wake up and be like, I don't got shit to do today. Like, I don't think that would go very well for me.
I think that part of that is because we are the high achievers, right? Like we have identity-based burnout because we are the ones that are the capable one, the dependable one, the one who always figures it out, the one that always has business coming in, and our worth is tied to our productivity. Even if like it feels so uncomfy for me to say like, yeah, my worth is tied to my productivity, but it is. I mean, if I have a bunch of business coming in and if I'm like crushing it in life, I feel the best that I can feel. And if there's nothing on my to-do list and I don't know what to do with my day, I'm like, what's the point of any of it?
It's like an addiction. I feel like we're all in that mode all the time where if you're not constantly going, then you do feel like something's wrong.
Yeah, it's like slowing down almost feels like losing a piece of your identity, or like rest feels unsafe almost.
But I do have to say, when I was on vacation this past week and I totally checked out, it felt good. And I felt like I gave myself permission to do it and not do any of the things I said I was going to do while I was on vacation.
Good. It's not easy to do.
No, it's not easy to do. I have very rarely successfully done that. And only if I really feel like my team is in a good spot and they can handle the things coming in. But one of the things I think we sometimes have to ask ourselves is like, what is our worst case scenario? Like if one of us gets behind, like somebody's not dying. It's somebody else went to a different lender or a different realtor or a different insurance agent. And while I know that we do the best that out there for anybody and I want them to work with us, like it wouldn't actually be the end of the world. And sometimes I have to acknowledge that like I can only do what I can do. I got to just set proper expectations with my clients, with my referral partners, let them know what I can and can't do. And most of them are fine with it as long as you set expectations. But if you say, yeah, I'll get this to you today, or I'll do it within 24 hours, you can only tell so many people that.
Right.
Last Friday, when I did talk to 8 people, I was like, okay, great. I've got a few more in front of you. It'll probably be the end of next week. Well, then, of course, now my phone has continued to ring constantly since then. And I'm just like, holy cow, I'm still trying to get to some of these ones from last week. When am I going to do the ones from this week? So it is a challenge for sure. And it is a recipe for burnout. But I think the only way for me to avoid it is to truly just let it go sometimes and go, you know what? I'm okay if I close one less loan this month because I didn't answer my phone fast enough. Chances are the client that moved on that fast was probably not my people anyway. They were probably going to be super shoppers, super aggressive. I don't get a ton of those. I have super nice clients, but sometimes you just got to let the universe play out.
When I worked in the restaurant industry and I was managing a couple different restaurants, and servers or bartenders or whoever would get super stressed out and they would come up and just be like blah, 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 word vomiting whatever was happening. Who put that microphone there? Sorry. And I would always jokingly say, it's not life or death, it's just a burger, it's going to be okay. And immediately we would all kind of take a step back and be like, okay, you know what, you're right, it feels like a lot right now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just a burger. Well,
and let's go. You were telling us a story earlier today that wasn't related to this topic, but I think it's super relevant. You were talking about a client that you were, you made a mistake, and that happens. And sometimes we beat ourselves up because we are so good at what we do. We want to be perfect. And the thought of not being perfect is really hard. And so sometimes we just really stew and like, oh my God, I really messed this up. And now I got to tell this client, and it just destroys us while we're waiting for that. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, so for the last 48 hours, I've just had a stomach ache and my throat has been hurting because I was so anxious about this, and my shoulders are hurting because I think I was holding them up in my ears. Basically, long story short, I made a mistake when I was setting up an employer group health plan where I thought that we could offer up to 3 insurance plans and we could only offer 1. But I didn't realize it for months because there was only 1 employee that had enrolled and she was super happy with her plan. So when I went to enroll the other 2 employees, they didn't have the plans available to them that I told them they did. And they have pre-existing health conditions, so they needed to have the better plan options. And so I had to go to the employer and basically come up with some creative solutions. And it was really disappointing because the plan that she had in place was super affordable. It had been going really well. In theory, everything was great. And so I had to go back to her and tell her that it wasn't great anymore. And I was beating myself up for a couple of days because I just hold myself to such a high standard. And I was so disappointed in myself for missing this thing. And luckily, she was amazing. I mean, she was so cool about it, super understanding, super patient, and the whole situation was diffused immediately. But even after that conversation, I'm still disappointed in myself. I'm still angry that that had to happen.
Well, the only thing you can do is just see where you could have done anything differently. So what would that have been?
I would have had to write her with a different carrier at that time. And I mean, honestly, when you say that, if I would have written her with a different carrier, it would have been expensive for the last 5 months too. So it wouldn't have been the best solution at that time either. But
so you were just kind of backed into a corner.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that is going to happen. There are just going to be times where we mess something up. I think our industries are just that way because I don't know much about insurance, but I'm going to guess it's the same as real estate and lending in that every single situation is different.
Oh yeah. Every situation is different. Every carrier is different. Every group is different. Yeah.
So you can't know everything. Even if you've done it for 50 years, you're going to run into one-offs where something happens and that kind of stuff does drag you down. Or even a guideline you've known for 20 years, all of a sudden they change it and you're like, oh shit, that is not how that used to be, but that's a gotcha. Things like that just happen and it sucks. But I think the moral of the story is usually we build it up in our minds to be worse than it is. And your actual worst case scenario on that is you lose the client.
Yeah.
you'd live. You'd get another one.
I called one of my business partners right before my meeting with her. And I was like, I need you to hype me up. I need you, I need to feel good going into this. And that's exactly what he said. He's like, okay, she gets super pissed. Worst case scenario, she's angry. There is one person enrolled on this plan. If you lose this group, you're losing nothing. I was like, oh, well, when you put it that way.
Is it worse that you lose them or that they yell at you?
That they yell at you for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
Of
I
course.
hate that.
Yeah.
But I find as long as you come in, I'll say for me personally, as long as I say I messed up, people don't yell at you.
That's exactly how I entered the conversation. I apologized and was like, this was
I messed up.
100% on me. Yep.
And I just find every single time I've ever done that in my career, I have not gotten yelled at. Or if somebody was mad, they came back to me later and immediately apologized. People are not expecting you to take responsibility. And I'm sure we've talked about on this podcast before because it is such a relevant thing. But we hype ourselves up when we get so scared and we brace ourselves. But usually clients look to you to see how you're going to react. If you're like, hey, I made a mistake. Here's how we're going to fix it. And this is the path. Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine. And if
My
they're not,
hardest-
you don't want to work with them.
Yes.
My hardest ones have been when it wasn't my mistake. They were just going through something personally within their own life and took it out on me. And I was blindsided. And that is a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
That is a horrible feeling, but there is also I can't prevent that from happening because
No.
people suck by and large.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
People out there, people in.
People are people in. So it's going to happen. And you just have to know that it's not about you. I mean, one of the biggest things, I was just talking to one of my assistants about this. He's very sensitive and he takes everything super personal, even if it wasn't intended that way. Like he will hear what he wants to hear out of it, even if he wants to hear the negative thing, because that's the story that his head is telling him. Like I actually was on a call with him last week. I was pulling him on a call to give him a raise and tell him he'd been doing a great job. And he literally thought he was getting fired. So he immediately started and was like, I think I'm done and I'm just going to quit. And I was like,
Why?
what? I was pulling you on to tell you were getting a raise. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I've done nothing but tell you what an amazing job you've done for a month. You've done everything I've asked you to. You've stepped up. But in his mind, he wasn't doing it good enough
We are
because he
our
had
own
some
worst
story.
enemies.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine how much he beats himself up in his head?
Yeah.
I know. I was like, buddy. And I was just like, man. Well, and it was because, he had told me before that he had wanted a raise. And I was like, hey, we got to get to this level. This is where we need to be. And then I want to get you there. But in his brain, what he heard is you're not good enough. You didn't do it yet and you'll never be there. And I didn't say that by any means.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And I know you're going to get there. But his brain told him he wasn't good enough. And he spiraled so bad for the last 30 days. And I had to have a little heart to heart with him yesterday. And I was like, hey, no matter what words are said to you by any people or your own brain, you cannot let yourself spiral like that.
Yeah.
Like, trust me, I spent 40 years of my life doing that shit to myself and being the worst voice in my head. But you have to not let words of any kind really define who you are. You have to learn to know you are good enough. You have to have your own confidence. And there isn't anybody else that can give that to you. No matter what like I said all the right things to him. And I even asked him, I'm like, have I not gone out of my way in every freaking email I've sent you? He's like, yeah, you totally have.
He
But it
just
didn't
didn't
matter.
believe it.
It didn't matter because of the story that was in his head.
I was at a training this last weekend and she was talking about our inner voice, the gremlin that's in there saying the nasty things. And she called it the itty bitty shitty committee.
Yes.
And I loved that
That
so
is
much.
amazing.
Have
I
you
love
ever
that.
told it to shut the hell up?
I
have. I 1000%.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
I had a coach that literally told me to talk back to mine. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
not today.
Yeah.
Well, even the one when my son was like first driving, first going off to college, and that little voice said going, he's going to get an accident. All
Yeah.
these bad things are going to happen. You have to tell it to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of this being said, you are not your accomplishments. You are not the negative story that you're telling yourself. It can be so easy to get all consumed by the negative and by the burnout and by hustle culture and, chronic stress being normalized as just life. That's just how it is. Or even being glorified, like being celebrated for being super busy. And when that happens and we get into that mindset, there are so many things that take a hit because of it. You're relationships end up just getting leftovers and little bits and pieces from you. And joy becomes something that you feel like you earn later. It's not something that you can have now. And you end up living for the weekends or for vacations or shit for retirement. And Renee told a story about a fisherman on our last episode. And if you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen to it, because I'm not going to do the story justice. But long story short, there was a fisherman who every morning would fish and every evening would go home to his family. And a businessman came in and tried to convince him to grow and grow and grow and expand and make his business so much bigger, so that in the end he could fish in the morning and go home to his family. And I think it's really important to find the joy today and to allow ourselves to breathe and slow down a little bit today. And just like you said, like, if I take 1 or 2 cases off of my to-do list, and that allows me to live a balanced week and to relax and not feel like I'm just strained the whole time, then losing those 2 clients is 110% worth it.
And don't you think if you have systems in place, which is what I'm still working on getting done,
Always.
that you will be so much more balanced and you can predict everything a little bit better and handle the dumpster fires a little better.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's about balancing the urgent versus the important.
Yeah.
So making sure that those important things like building those systems doesn't get put back. A perfect example of me failing at this is I always have my little notebooks that I track everything in. And I really wanted to revamp this notebook for this year and do some different things. And I've overthought it so much that I have not printed it yet for January. And so I'm scribbling in the old one, like new leads, and I'm running out of room and I'm like lost without this thing. And I'm like, print the fucking notebook and change it later. Change it in March. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, analysis paralysis
I've
on
got
this.
one of those too.
So I do think you're very right about that and figuring out how much is too much, how much is really enough. I think we always are like, I got to do better. I got to do more. But sometimes it's about, hey, what I'm doing is pretty damn good and it might just be enough. And the little things that we stress about, I want to go back to something that I heard. I read a quote one time that I'll never forget. And it was, if it's not going to matter 5 years from now, don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it today. And I think that's really good perspective, because me losing one loan, you losing one client, you're not even probably going to remember it 5 years from now. You know, Lexi, my daughter, is a senior in high school. Talk about burnout. All she wants to do is be done and go to college right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, understandably so.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was really stressed about a final the other day and all this studying. And I'm like, I don't want to tell you that like one grade in high school doesn't matter at all for the rest of your life, but like one grade in high school doesn't matter for the rest of your life. Like, yes, get good grades, keep your GPA up, keep your scholarships, all that matters. But this is not something that needs to own our lives.
Yeah, I was just thinking too about when I went on vacation and why I needed to totally check out. Not only was work consistently busy this past year, because our market's been just crazy and you've got sellers constantly wondering, why is my house not selling? Then you have another one that gets multiple offers. And then you've got personal stuff that happens. So we lost our dog, which was unexpected. Had a grandson that was born, just got sick. My mother's on the other side of the country navigating life at 80 years old for the first time by herself. And I just need to go check out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's not only okay, but I think it's recommended.
You have to, or I don't know what happens.
Well,
I don't want to find
mental
out.
breakdowns,
You know, end up in an insane asylum.
midlife
That's where I'm
crisis.
headed.
I think it's a little of everything. I mean, there's so many things that can, but on a smaller level, it's probably health challenges. It's probably me being less patient with my family than I should be. It's me not prioritizing the things that I really need to do. So I think it's just that kind of step back and figuring out, how do I unload my brain a little bit, and what can I think screen time is a big one. I think we are all training our brains to be just constantly excited, constant dopamine hit. And I read a thing the other day that said the worst thing you can do is pick up your phone while you're laying in bed in the morning, because the first thing you do in the morning is the thing that you're training your body to want the rest of the day. So if you start out looking at social media or playing a game or reading your email, your body is programmed now that that's what it wants to do the rest of the day. And so I've been really trying like no phone in bed, no phone in bed, because I notice even if I lay in bed at night and I'm looking at my phone just a little bit longer, I probably easily lose a half hour of sleep each time. And if I just got up and started my day instead of staring at my phone in the morning, I mean, it's probably an hour of productive time and less screens. And I mean, that's a simple one, simpler.
Have you ever heard of a brick?
Mm-mm.
I mean, not like a physical.
I'm like, yes,
Is
yes, I
it
have.
an acronym?
No, I just learned about this from my sister-in-law. There's a device called a brick, and basically you go place it somewhere else in the house, and you have to tap your phone to it in order to unlock your phone. And that can be like your alarm goes off. If you're having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, your alarm goes off, and the only way to turn your alarm off is to go tap your phone to the brick. And same thing, if you want to unlock it to play a phone game, you have to go tap it to the brick.
I
And
like
I'm
it.
just not addicted to it that much. And I started with meditation last year and went off of it. And now I've gotten back into it. And I'm addicted to the meditation because it just feels so good to be that grounded.
Yeah.
And it's all the breath work.
Good.
which
I
is-
mean, I feel like that's a great thing to be spending your time doing.
Absolutely.
But I know for me, like, I'll just pull my phone out and immediately click on Instagram or click
I
on
used
Facebook
to.
for literally no reason. Just
Or
middle
look
of
at
the
the
day. It's
news.
like, yeah, I just automatically do that. So I just ordered one for myself
Good.
because
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
I need that for myself.
I think it's super smart. My one of our security things for work, I have to unlock from my phone, and so it makes me pick up my phone, and then I can't not like, oh, let me see what's happening on Instagram, and it turns into a black hole every time. I'm like, I need a better way to log into my computer than picking up my phone.
Yeah.
This sabotages me every time. So I think I'm gonna bet. I'm glad that's not an issue for you, Court, but it is for me and Britt, and I will bet you probably 90% of people it is. But I love this brick idea. I read one of the books that I love. I think it was called The Happiness Project, but he was talking about he wanted to learn to play guitar, and he just would end up watching TV every night, and it was just too hard to like go in the office and get the guitar and bring it out. So what he did is he started putting the guitar in the living room right next to the couch, and then he took the TV remote and took the batteries out and went and put them in a drawer in another room. So then when he went and sat down on the couch at night and he was tired and he was like, I just want to relax, the easiest thing for him to do was to play the guitar
Brilliant.
as opposed to just turning on the TV. So it's about like, what can you do for yourself to put you in a spot? Like if there's a puzzle going in my living room, I'll work on that instead of looking at my phone. There isn't one currently going, and
I'll fix that.
I know it's sitting out there. It could. There's
I'm a
even a
puzzle
puzzle sitting
addict.
there. Yeah, because Britt's not here to puzzle with me all the time anymore. But it's like, what else could you do to change that habit? What could we do that would make it a little bit different, that would actually give your brain a break from, and your eyes a break? Actually, that's when I've really noticed the screen time. Like my eyes are getting so bad so fast, and it is kind of horrifying me. So I need to definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I used to be on the phone a lot more and play a game or whatever, but now I get more excited about other things. So I think it was just like redirecting. If you're going to quit doing something like smoking or drinking or whatever, you got to change the pattern.
Yeah.
Well, and also if you're going to set an intention to do something like that, they say that you should do something in that moment that ensures you're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
So either taking one step towards a goal if you're going to do something positive, or if you're going to do something or you're taking something out of your life. I just was listening to this podcast. It was actually Cody Sanchez interviewing Tony Robbins. Great podcast. Anything Cody Sanchez, like, just love her to death. She should run for president, her or Tony Robbins. I'd be fine with either one of those. But one of the things that she was saying is she had to, I think it was something about was eating too much bread and drinking too much wine, and she needed to like change that. And her husband was like, okay, fine. You just make these casual things, but there's no punishment. Like, you don't. So what happens if you don't? So she had this goal that she really, really wanted to hit. And he was like, all right, fine. I'm going to take out the checkbook and I'm going to write a big check to, it was a political party that she was very, very much not wanting to be associated with. And He was like, if you go back on what you said, I'm going to mail this check and your name's going to be on their donor list. And she was like, oh my God.
Oh, that would get me too.
Yeah.
I don't want either one of them to have my money.
And it wasn't like a presidential candidate or something. It was like some socialist party something
Oh,
or whatever. And, she's the queen of like small businesses and capitalism. So anyway, I actually thought that was kind of brilliant. Like, where would it really hurt? So think about that. What would be a good enough stick as opposed to the carrot? Like either what's a good reward or what is something that
The
is
other
gonna be a
thing that would
punishment?
kill me was if people threw the recycling in my house in the trash.
That's your punishment.
That substantially bothers me as well.
There's this big moment right now for living a soft life. And there for a long time, hustle culture was, the verbiage that was used. And now we're kind of swinging to the opposite side of the spectrum. And I've heard this thrown out many times. I'm living a soft life. I'm in my soft life era. And I think that it's kind of like the gentle parenting thing where I think that there is a right way to do that. And I think that there's a lot of people that associate being like lazy or not parenting or unmotivated or checked out or whatever, all of these negative terms towards soft life. And I think what it actually is leaning into a life where your nervous system isn't constantly in survival mode and making decisions that aren't based on urgency, like you talked about earlier, but that are based on sustainability and asking yourself, is this necessary? Am I going to care about this a couple of years down the road? Like, is this something that I have to do? Is it something that I want to do? And not being afraid to take some things off of your list and choosing enough over more.
I've always lived by that quote Maya Angelou said, that people forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, and they'll never forget how you made them feel. So that made a huge impression on me years ago, and I didn't want to be the number one realtor and jeopardize all my relationships because I don't even know how you pull that off sometimes. It's a lot.
But I take that with my clients too. Like I absolutely believe that I make my clients feel better than any other loan officer
Yes, you
because
do.
I spend a lot of time making them feel confident in the fact that they're making the right decision, that they've done the right things to prepare themselves for home ownership, that they're buying in a market with great opportunities. Like, again, that no other lender is making them feel that great. They're just like, here's some numbers for you.
Right.
And
No,
nobody
you educate them
likes
and
them. So
help guide them.
that's the goal anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I think because of that, those are our core values. That's what we expect to give to everybody. But all of a sudden, when we have way too many things on our list, that's what starts to go away. And I think
Yes.
that's where my burnout starts to kick in is when I know I'm not being the best version of myself for myself, for
Me
my
too.
clients, for my partners, for my friend, like for anybody. And as soon as I can't show up as the best version of me, that is the big red flag of, okay, let's take a big step back and delegate some things and take some things off of my list because this is not sustainable.
Yeah. We're advisors at England Volkers, and that means you're not a salesperson. You help your clients. Like I had one yesterday said, I think we want to rent before we buy so that we can really understand the community and where we want to live. And I said, I'm still
think
going
that's
to
a
help
great
you with
idea.
that. I won't get paid, but I will introduce you to the right property managers and help you pick the right part of town so that you can feel like you still had me as your advisor.
I love that.
Yeah. And they'll remember that because you cared about them. You didn't make them feel bad about it. And you actually cared that probably was the right scenario for those clients. I have done the same thing. I've told multiple clients, why don't you rent for a while first and figure it out, get your job lined up here and go from there. But I want to go back to this soft life thing for a minute because I think I'm not totally 100% bought into this. I think there's a happy medium somewhere, but I want to talk about what it is and what it isn't. So I don't think it's an excuse to sit on the couch and do nothing. I do think it is about making sure that you're getting in the balance of things. But one of the things I see a lot with some of the younger generations, because again, we have trained our brains to be so dopamine dependent, so instant gratification. I feel like so many of them have watched their parents or grandparents like burnout mode from working too hard. So they're going too far the opposite direction. And then they're like, well, why can't I buy a house, or why don't I have any savings? And it's because they've gone for the instant things like the expensive car that they don't deserve to have yet because they haven't actually made the money. They're not putting away money in the bank because there's a different version of self-care out there, like shopping and going out to brunch with your friends and doing all these things, which while those things
Buying
are great.
the fancy coffee.
Yeah, the fancy coffee every day. Like those things might be it, but they also might be sabotaging you a little bit from what your actual goals are. So I'm still a big proponent of grind while you're young. I know there's a big movement against that, but to be honest, like that's when you have the energy. Most of the time you don't have a family yet. You may not even have a spouse yet. Like my husband and I busted our butts when we were younger, before we got married, while we were married, and even, while our daughter was pretty young. And I don't regret that, because now while we're in our 40s, and I know all the young, like 20-year-olds are going to be like, I don't want that when I'm in my 40s. I want time now. Just let me tell you, your 40s are your best time of your life. So I know nobody's going to believe me, but if you're in your 40s, you already know that that's true.
My 30s so far have been way better than my 20s.
There you go. And your 40s
imagine.
are going to be even better. So I really think that there is some value in building that stuff early, starting your savings account off early, because you get that compounding effect of the work that you've done, the relationships that you've built, the interest on the money that you've put away. So don't make it an excuse that you don't have to grind, or you don't have to work hard, or you don't have to have goals, because I really do think that's where the fulfillment comes from. And it's super easy to make yourself happy. It's super easy to go have a cocktail or go hang out with a friend or whatever it looks like. But what is it that really is fulfilling for you?
Well, and that's out of what you were just talking about. I think that where my brain went is, especially the younger generations that haven't learned some of these things are having a tendency to just do anything that feels good.
Right.
Like self-care is so important. And we have that conversation all the time when we talk about how mental health matters so much. And yes, all of those things are true. And there are so many ways to lean into self-care and taking care of yourself that don't have to be buying the new car, buying the expensive coffee, going on a big shopping spree. Like you can take care of yourself and feel really good for free.
Right.
It made me think of the compounding effect, and whether you're buying all the self-gratification things like having your nails done, buying the fancy coffee, going on vacation, or you're saving and working hard, is going to compound into a lot of debt or a lot of savings.
Exactly. And I think that is just a really important point. But back to circle it back on this burnout topic, I think checking back in with what really makes you feel fulfilled, that for me is how I get out of burnout. I mean, I've been in the mortgage business for 21 years. I will promise you I have had to fall back in love with this business multiple times, because it will eat you alive. It is hardcore, and you go from zero to hero to zero every single month. You have a great month, and the next month you're at zero, and you're always going to get punched in the face by a file that surprises you, something that happens. Like it's a hard business, but that's also why we make good money. And that was another conversation I had with one of my assistants this week. Was he didn't want to do anything that like he could mess up. He didn't want to do the numbers part. He didn't want to do the pricing part. He didn't want to do this, didn't want to do that. And I was like, you know what? Those are the parts that you get paid high dollars for. Like if you just want to do the easy stuff that anybody can do, you're not going to make very much money, and that's fine. But I know you, and I know you're very driven by money. So you're going to have to trust yourself. You're going to have to be able to take the risks, and you're going to have to do the hard things. And I think that's one of the most important lessons any of us can learn is you can do the hard things. When you make it through a hard thing, whether that's us or our kids, knowing you can come out the other side of the hard thing is what builds the confidence to go through another
And the
hard
character.
thing. Yeah.
And I think part of the way to get yourself out of burnout or out of a state of just like living in really high anxiety is making sure to take a step back and celebrate when you do the hard thing.
Yeah.
I know that I have a tendency to just like bulldoze through life, right? Like I have high goals, and I'll have this client that I've been like working for years to gain, and I gain them, and then I'm just like on to the next one, instead of like take an evening and take a bath and journal and really celebrate and be stoked and so happy for yourself, and then start again the next day. But I don't tend to do that myself. And I think that's a really easy way to make sure that you don't just keep bulldozing through life.
Yeah. And it might be as simple as going back and looking at reviews for clients that you've helped. Or I like to go back and sometimes if I'm like feeling a little down, I'll go back and look at the numbers of how many families I've helped that year. Or maybe even go back and look at my paycheck and be like, look what I did, you know, whatever that win looks
All the
like
money
for
you
you.
donated.
That's right. Yeah. Look at whatever that looks like. And, you know, a vacation I think is a really good thing, and it might be a cure for a burnout for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be you go spend 10 grand on a vacation. It could be you literally hole up in your bedroom for a couple of days, or you go get a hotel room downtown for a couple of nights, or whatever it is. It could absolutely be a staycation, but I think it means you step away from work, you step away from whatever other things are going. Most of your problems will still be there a couple days from now, but you really just give yourself a chance to breathe and do what it is that you need to focus on.
And then put some boundaries too on how much you actually can get done, like you were talking about before.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when I start my day with 20 things on my to-do list, I know damn well that's not all getting done. So starting with a more reasonable list will help me. Because if I look at that, I'm like, I go into burnout mode and I'm like, well, I guess I'll look at Facebook.
Yeah, that's
know?
pretty typical of anybody.
So
Well,
if I just go and say, okay, here's my 5 things I think I actually can get done today, highlight them on the list, put a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so that I can just whip through them. And sometimes I'll pick off, I'm a big fan of eating the frog and doing the hardest thing first, but sometimes I need to go through and just like knock out 3 or 4 different refi quotes because I can get those done in 5-10 minutes a piece and I'll feel
Get the
productive.
little dopamine boost.
Yep. Crossing some shit off. Let's go. I feel good. I can do this. Like, here we go.
I think we would be remiss to not talk about too. Burnout can absolutely come in a lot of forms, not just in your career. And so, you know, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom who is go 24/7, right? There's always cleaning to be done. There's always meals to be done. There's always laundry to be done. There's always kids to be taken care of. And I think that a lot of people can be afraid of disappointing others when they slow down. And, you know, it might confuse people who benefit from your overfunctioning, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I think as long as you clearly communicate when you need time, when you need to take a couple of days, if you clearly communicate, like, I cannot keep going at this level and I need to do this for myself, and, you know, put some things in place so that you can, everybody deserves to have that.
I think that's an excellent point. Communicating what you need and asking for help. I think whether that is in your home life or your business life, and I think we've talked about that before, but being able to ask, and it's okay that you can't do everything. You're not supposed to. If like last night my husband walked in the door, was like, hey, I got a client call right now. Can I text you this recipe that I was going to start? Will you start it? And he was like, yeah, of course. Great. So did
Proud
it
of
turn
you.
out to be the best thing we've ever eaten? No. Did we eat food? Yes.
Probably was better than my mac and cheese.
Doubtful. What's better than mac and cheese? But it
That's
was
what I had
fine.
to do this year for sure, because that's where a lot of my burnout was coming from last year, trying to manage our Airbnbs and cook and clean and do the grocery shopping. And my husband complained last night about what bread I picked, and I said, well, you do the shopping.
Yeah, you're like, perfect. I've got a great solution for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. You can handle that. So I do think, you know, just acknowledging that you can't do it all, asking for the little things, and delegating. So if burnout is your job, or is becoming
Burnout is my job.
if your burnout is coming from your job, figure out what are the things that you absolutely have to do that nobody else can do. That stays in your bucket. But what else is filling your day? What are the things that are maybe lower payoff activities that you can outsource? Whether that is you don't want to do your social media posts and you can hire somebody else to do that, do it. Whether it is you need to spend some time filing in your office, hire your teenager to do that crap. Like whatever it is, figure out the things that are not the best use of your time. An exercise I did a couple years ago was I figured out what my hourly wage was. I took my W-2 from the last year, divided it by how many hours I typically work in a week, kind of did the math backwards and figured out my hourly wage. And then once I knew that, at that time it was like $400 and some an hour. And so every task that was on my list, I was like, is this worth $400 an hour? And if it wasn't, somebody else was doing it. And so I have somebody that helps clean my house. I have Instacart that brings me groceries. Because if I go to the grocery store in Costco and drive there and back, that's 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
So that's going to cost me $1,000 in my lost time. I'll Instacart my groceries.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me a little more, but it's not going to cost me $1,000.
No, and it's not going to cost you your peace of mind.
No.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, rest is not a reward. It's a requirement. And I think that we forget that sometimes. So just when you can feel yourself starting to get there, don't let yourself go all the way. Like, take those little red flags when you feel yourself starting to get sick, or you feel a lot of tension, or you get stressed out when you get another client call. That is the sign to, okay, let's pump the brakes for a second. It's time to change something.
Yeah. And even making a little reward for yourself. If you have a project, for example, that's been looming and you're like, I need to get this done. And maybe it's been on your list for a couple of weeks or a couple of months or a couple of years, but you really want to get it done and stop thinking about it. Figure out what a little reward can be for yourself. And that might be a simple, like my daughter this weekend was like, oh my God, I got to get this project turned in and I don't want to do it. And I'm like, well, let's figure out a reward for you. I'm like, how long is it really going to take you? And she's like, probably an hour. I'm like, okay, well, when you get done, we're going to go to your favorite coffee place and I will buy coffee. And she was like, okay, like reluctantly, but it's a little carrot, but it was a big enough carrot for her that she was like, that actually sounds pretty good. Let's do it.
I find when I have a project that I'm not getting done, it's because I don't even know where the starting point is. That is the confusing thing.
Well, and sometimes that's the answer. Like sometimes it's not how, but it's who.
Yeah.
Who can help me with this? Who do I need to outsource this to? Who can I ask about this? And sometimes, guys, we figure out these projects aren't things that actually matter to us. And again, I'll circle it back to what really makes you feel fulfilled. And if that project doesn't fit it anymore, take it off the list.
Yep.
If that club or organization that you're giving your time to doesn't fit it anymore, it's not filling your cup, it's drawing from it, take it off the list.
Felicia.
Go find something that does. Go find something that fills up your soul. And, I saw another Tony Robbins podcast and it was with Alex Hormozy this time. And Hormozy was talking about giving like hundreds of thousands of dollars in checks and for charities. And he didn't even feel good about it. Tony Robbins was like, well, what'd you give it to? And he's like, after school kids programs. And he's like, you don't even have kids. Like, that's clearly not where your heart is. He's like, it's great that you did that. But he's like, the reason you don't feel fulfilled is because that is not where your heart is. You need to figure out what it is that you are really passionate about doing and go give them money. And I promise you, it'll feel a lot better. So figure out what that is. And maybe volunteering is the answer. Sometimes it is just checking back and going, who else can I help? That's a dangerous thing.
Tell us your story about how you were feeling really burnt out the other day and then got to help some people.
Okay. So on Tuesday last week, it was just a rough day and I was burnt out and I was exhausted and I didn't want to leave my house, but I had promised my friend Susan Beth, who we're going to have her as a special guest coming up soon. So stay tuned. But she asked me if I would come and speak to some of her friends. She had some younger friends that just kind of had lost hope on whether they were going to get to buy a house. And she said, just come talk to them. We'll just make you dinner. And I was like, okay, do you want me to have a presentation or something? And she's like, sure, you could like have some things you want to talk about or a handout, but mostly let them ask questions. So we came in and we had dinner at this like super cute house, super casual. Everybody's just hanging out. We had soup and salad and bread and just all hung out. And I had such a fun time just talking to them and interacting with them and asking them questions and giving them some hope around the market. And I walked out of there and Susan Beth was like, you did such a great job. And I was like, that was so fun. That was exactly what I needed in my life. And one of my friends happened to call me just as I was getting in my truck. And I was like, I'm so happy right now. She's like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I told her, I was like, I did not want to leave the house, but I knew as soon as I got there, it would be what I wanted. And it far exceeded my expectations. And, if they come and buy houses through me down the road, awesome. But if not, if I gave somebody hope, and it was just a great time and it made Susan Beth feel good to add value to her friends, made me feel good. And it cost nothing for me to do it. It didn't cost them anything to have me there other than feeding me soup and salad and bread, which was great. So just sometimes you find it in the unexpected places, but it went back to what fulfills me always is meeting with clients, talking to people about their goals of home ownership every time will turn me around. That is the cure for my burnout every time.
Love it. Fulfillment. Do what fulfills you. That is the theme of this episode.
Well, it's
so
really hard
important.
sometimes to know what it is.
Yeah.
Like that is something I consciously have to spend time figuring out. Like, what is your why? Why do you want to keep doing this? And I know
think
what it is, but
changes.
it does.
Yeah.
It gets refined a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if this was helpful to you, please share it with a friend, like, subscribe, follow. We would love to have as many of you in our network as possible. We have some really fun group speakers, guest speakers coming up. Hey, I'm burnt out. Leave me alone.
And we're just drinking tea.
Yeah, we just got tea going on right now. It's a little different season for us. Although I will admit, I did fail on dry January miserably. I gave myself permission to let that one go.
Yeah. January's the worst month to go dry.
I'm still going strong.
I thought that same thing. Good for you. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to do dry February. And I'm like, no, I got my top producer trip. And I'm like, March, nope, spring break. April, nope, we're going to Disneyland. Okay, May, nope, that's Memorial Day and lake season starts. And it was like, okay, why am I torturing myself? Just pay attention. And if I actually want a glass of wine, have a freaking glass of wine. But don't just have one because you think it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I drank a lot of water last night and had to get up 3 times in the middle of the night.
no.
That's the worst.
Well, stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to talk about breaking the bias. We got some gender bias things to talk about, so maybe a little bit spicy episode there. Again, if it was helpful, please like, please subscribe, please share. Our goal is to connect with as many of you as we can. So thanks for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Here's to empowering each other, one story at a time.